Hello and welcome to another Tech Articles. In today's article, I'm going to talk about a new repo I've been publishing to over the weekend called webhook shortcut trigger. Um, and it's basically it has three separate shortcode generations within it, which is to generate a button, a on-page load, and an on-click webhook trigger, depending on what you want to do. And a little bit of background on this: I released my solution for creating testing boxes for sandboxes for Windows installations for Hookshaw, and that's in the repo before this one. And I saw another YouTube creator asking questions about how they can do something similar, but from a log it in button. And actually, I thought to myself, that's really quite a useful thing to be able to do. I've wanted to do it for ages, and I thought, I'm going to code the bit that would allow that to connect those two together. So that's what I did over the weekend. I started to code on button, and I had that done probably within a few hours. And then I posted a short snippet on the Facebook group of Flowmattic, and somebody asked about on load. And then while I was coding on load, I thought, well, actually, I might want it on click as well. So that's a little bit of background about the reason behind this project. And I've actually been still live updating it today. You can see that my last commit was only an hour ago. So it uses shortcodes which are universal, which are totally builder agnostic, which means you can do a lot with them. Um, on the button, there are some minimum requirements. Email is also a minimum requirement, but if you don't set an email, it will send a logged in user's email. Um, but it also has auto load hook, which just requires the webhook, and it also has an on click. And there's lots of optional capabilities. For example, if you don't want to send an email, you can set no email to true and then just put email as empty, and it will just send an empty email. You can assign individual classes to your buttons so you can style them individually. It takes an unlimited number of additional parameter information. It can capture URL information, both the whole URL or split the URL params into individual parameters. It can capture browser information. It can post, get, put, and delete. I've only tested it that it can send to post, get, put. Sorry, post, put, and delete. I haven't been able to test get yet, but I see no reason why it wouldn't work. And I've been able to test delete for a send, but not confirm that it would do a deletion. Um, it's able to take additional headers, including bearer tokens and basic auth, if you set them. It has a delay function inbuilt. It can redirect after you've pushed the button, and it has a storage system for storing parameters that you don't want on the front end. I will say that although I've done a lot of testing on this, I'm not guaranteeing this is totally secure. Keep in mind, it's JavaScript. It's although a lot of the stuff is done on the back end, it is still quite possible that somebody could sniff it out if they wanted to spend enough time looking. So keep that in mind. But for basic elements, it's it's well hidden. I've had a check, and actually that's one of the updates I was making this morning. I found a gaping hole in the on click, so I went and fixed it. Um, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head over to a WordPress install called Triggers, and I've got several pages here, and we're going to go through them. And over on this other tab, I have a separate instance with Flowmattic installed on a separate site. And we're not going to do anything with Flowmattic here. We're not going to do any really impressive items. We're just going to trigger it to show that it comes through and how that works. And in all but one of the cases here, we'll be testing totally unauthorized. So it's just an open webhook. We'll do a one authorization test later to show that it can do bearers. So I'm going to head back over to these pages, and I'm going to start with the onload. So this page here, I'm just going to open it in a new link. We've just loaded this page as a edit, and it's got a simple shortcode here with a header for authorization. And actually, I can show you the authorization token is being so it's an installed value. The webhook is an installed value, so the URL is an installed value. I want to capture individual browser parameters, a delay of 5,000, which is 5 seconds, and I don't want it to send an email. So we're just going to open that out, and we've loaded the page. And if we go over to Flowmattic, after about 5 seconds, we should have a trigger of the hook, which we do. and it's sent exactly what we said. No email, but it has sent our authorization bearer token to trigger our webhook. So if you just wanted to trigger a webhook, you could do that. And if we wanted to send particular data, i.e., the stored username of the stored email of the user that's triggered the page, if it was in a signed in parameter, we just remove the no email. And what I'm also going to do here was add a parameter to the onload when we reload it. So saving this. So this is our page. I'm just going to modify the URL to include BR triplets, and we should get a additional parameter now on the second look. So give it its 5 seconds, and there we go. It's triggered. First of all, you'll see our additional URL parameter, and as well as that, it's sent an email this time, which is my email because I am the logged in user. So you can see how that works on a page load, and I wasn't even aware that was happening when I was loading the page. It's just a blank page. So that's page load. So our next item we're going to do is this one here. And once that loads, okay, so we've got several shortcodes on this page. I'm just going to load that up. Doing different things. So we've got, actually it's probably easier to show this on the front end. So we have stored email in the database, logged in user, a hard-coded email, no email, and really cool product. So I'm going to just quickly run through in the back end what's going on here. So stored email in database is pulling its email from an is stored function, so it's hidden. The next one was logged in user, so that's just the default. It was in my email address. This one here has a different hard coded email at test@test.com. And this one here has got no email set to true and an empty email string sent. And this one down here is possibly one of the items I didn't have in my mind when I started building this, but as I started to test it, I could see how this could be really useful. So this is just a very basic button called really cool product. It doesn't do anything on update. It stays as really cool product. It captures the URL and it's a post. It's got authorization headers just for testing purposes, but it redirects to one of my products. I don't need any email, but I could have emails if I had this in an admin area, for example, or in a back end area, and I was wanting to collect the email address of somebody who had clicked on one of my links and was going to give them something in return, i.e., get my free templates if you sign up using my link. Well, that is where I can see this one being quite useful. So if we head over to the front end, we'll start with that one. Actually, we won't. We will finish with that one because it redirects. So stored email in database. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh Flowmattic. I think I deleted them. I did. Okay, so it's empty, and we're just going to do our tests in very quick succession. So stored email in database, logged in user, hard coded email, no email. And you'll notice on change, it changes the text to a different option, which is here. So you have to begin with and then after text. That's so there's some sort of user feedback there. So we're going to head back to Flowmattic and we did our tests and we have our 4 hook responses. So our first one being our secret email, our second one being our logged in user email, our third one being our hard coded email, and that finally gives us the last one being our no email. And you can see the parameters are pretty much the same all the way along here. We're sending lots and lots of parameters, including a secret parameter from the settings page. We're sending browser data, and we also can send URL data as well, which this one doesn't do. So if one of these others has got URL data set, it's probably easy to look at the shortcodes. Capture URL individual. So which one's that one? No email. So that's this one here, I think, isn't it? So it's the it's no email. So it's going to be the last one. So this one, it should have URL parameters attached to it. I will have to check that. Oh, there they are. They're individuals. So oh, there are no URL parameters, is there? Is it set to individual? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to set this to both. And I'm going to push that button again. So that was no email. Push it to both. There is no URL parameters. That's why I didn't send anything. So if I put a URL parameter in here, oh, that came up with some options. And then push this. I'll do it again. We'll actually get some parameters this time. That's why. But individual just sends them as individual. Both sends the URL as well. So I was looking for something that didn't exist. So here we've got our individual URL parameters and our page URL. So both send them like this. Individual only would just send this, and page URL would send this one. And it isn't page URL, is it? It's individual full. So full would send the page URL. So back here, and finally our really cool product. As I said, this is where I think, as I developed this, it became more interesting to me as an option. So if I could click this button, really cool product, it will do some stuff. It will then redirect, and what it's going to do is redirect to one of my products, response for short forms, and it's there. But if we go to Flowmattic and now look at that trigger, this one here, you'll see here it tells me what link was closed, and now it doesn't send an email because it's not designed to send an email, because it's got no email equals true. But if we remove this line and then refresh that page, go back and click it again and reload it in Flowmattic while that reloads, this one here, you'll see it sends my email. So as I said, if you had this in your back end, say in a customer dashboard, and you got them to click that button for the item, you'd know they'd clicked your link, and you could then do your check-in with your affiliate partner to check that it was them that purchased it, or there was a purchase around that time through your link. So you could use that data quite usefully. So that's the button elements as well. So we'll close that down now, and we'll close that one down, and we'll now go to element. So element is this one, and this is relatively simple. It's just, again, a very short code that has an element ID in it. So it's linked to this trigger up here, and all this does is capture URL data, capture browser data, sends an authorization header, a custom header, and no email. So if we open that up and we trigger this webhook, you'll see that it's run. We head over here, and we should have one it should be this one. And here it is. So it tells us that it was on the element, it sends its browser data, it's got our URL, it's a blank email, and we've got our header information. And that's how that one works as well. And obviously this is a link, but it could be a clickable image, it could be anything that we can target and that's clickable. So it's a little bit more universal than the button, which is, it has to be a button. And a little bit more interactive than on a page load, which you could, for example, include in your newsletter as an example for that. And actually, in terms of onload, if you've got it to accept parameters, and I don't know if this is set to, yes, it is. Let's change this to both as well. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to copy the link address. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm just going to add some parameters of param equals xxx and no equals yyy, and I'm going to load that page. And we've loaded our page, and this could be whatever data you want. And if we head back to Flowmattic, we have our, that's the wrong one. There it is. There must be a delay on this. We have our parameters here. So we know that was the URL. These are our parameters that we use. The logged in email user that logged into it, and it sent that data. And there must be a delay on that. There is the delay of 5 seconds. So that's why it took a little time for it to come through. So that's where that could be useful as well, in newsletter links, etc., or just to know that somebody's gone to a page. And I think this is what I'm going to use it for mainly. So here's a logged in look at a page. So obviously I built the try Hookshaw page and the sandbox behind it, and that was set up. And I'll load this page to edit, so that we can go through that in a second. That was set up to allow this to happen. So we've got our box, and in this case, I'm a logged in user, so it would just let me log into my sandbox or create a sandbox here, and we'll get a trigger over in Flowmattic, and our data is all there. Tells me who I am, and it's giving me all the extra data and all the parameters and everything else, so I know who clicked it, and they'd get their email saying, here you go, here's your sandbox. But what happens if you're not a logged in user? Well, using some blocks here, and I've used block visibility, so let me open that back up here, page. So I've used in some block visibility, and I've used user is logged in as under a rule set. And if the user is logged in, we know their email address, so we're just going to tell them to click their button and get a sandbox. So this one here and this one here will just allow you to generate a sandbox because you're a logged in user and we know your email. Same as if your email was in the parameters. So for example, if you were passing from your dashboard on another selling program to a page, as long as you know that email and you can inject URL parameters and they allow you to do that, you could inject their username into the URL parameters. You could set parameters to on, and then it would send it as an individual parameter. You could grab it from the parameter and run it that way. There's lots of methodologies in which way you could do this. But if you're not, the key here is if you're not logged in, you get a different response. So you hide when this rule applies. This rule doesn't hide. So when user is logged in, this is hidden, but when they're not, it's shown, and vice versa. Same with this. So when user is logged in, it doesn't hide the shortcode because that's what we want, but it does hide the email, the short form email request, because we don't want that. So the reality of this is, if we go back to triggers and I view this as an incognito window, this is what somebody who isn't logged in sees, which would allow them to create my sandbox however I want. But if it was one of my logged in users, they see this. And by allowing us to put triggers in places and elements and on clicks and stuff, we start to open up what we can do with automations. And that's why when I saw the question, I thought I would develop this, and I'm pretty happy with where it is. As I say, it's an active developed item. I've seen a couple of little bits and pieces actually while I've recorded this video that I want to modify, so there will be a push after I've recorded this video. But the code is there. Use it, do whatever you want with it. I'd be interested to know what you are doing with it, in case you've got a use case that I haven't thought of. But it's in my GitHub. A link will be down below, including a link to the two create your own sandbox videos. One showing you how to set up a multi-site on grid pane, and one showing you how to use my other plugin to issue your sandboxes. So hopefully that's been useful to you. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help. If there is something you want me to look into, if there is something that you want to see me do, or a suggestion, please do put it in the comments. Please do put it on one of the Facebook groups I'm a member of. And yeah, please do interact. And thanks for watching.